What's up guys, and welcome to the final part of every Soulsborne boss ranked best to worst. And in this episode there's only going to be 7, but these are the top
the
7. Yeah, these are like the worst of the worst.
So by now you've probably guessed what some of them are, but get your bets in to see what the worst one is.
I mean, it's really a toss-up between only 2 in the entire series what the worst one is, isn't it?
Well, maybe not, but anyway, I suppose we should get into the video.
Yeah, let's start this slaughter.
So 101. So, coming in at 101 is Dragon God. Now, the problem with this is it basically isn't even really a boss. Most of the Archstone bosses in Demon Souls are really kind of subpar, which was a shame, but especially the Dragon God boss, it's one of those sort of quote-unquote puzzle bosses, and it really just doesn't do that. It's not exactly mentally challenging, it's not exactly difficult to figure out, and it's not exactly hard either. I suppose if the first time you've ever went in it, it'll just get a lucky shot on you and one-shot you, and then you're like, fuck you.
Until you understand the mechanics of the fight, and that you just look at its eyes, and if it can't see you, you can bolt for the fucking the ballista.
Exactly. I mean, I guess it's one redeeming factor is the fact that it's over with pretty quickly and easily, but I think that's the thing. It's easy, it's not even a boss, and the fact that there's worse than something that basically isn't even a boss just shows you how shit the next things are.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty much all you can even say about Dragon God. Like,
no, there's 2 more things you can say.
Oh.
You can get the big amazing belter of a fucking strength sword, the Dragon Bone Crusher at the end of the fight, and you can turn his soul into Firestorm, which is OP.
Oh, I suppose.
But that's really it. You just got to make it to the left. You need to make it to the right side and fire the ballista, and then you never guess what the next step is. You need to make it to the other side and fire the ballista. And then you just go down and hit him a few times till he's dead.
I mean, at the very least, he looks cool, I suppose. But the fact it was built up so much from...
He's got like a fucking 12-pack.
and like 8 fingers.
Aye. It's
but,
fucking mental.
The fact it was built up from like the beginning cutscene as you played the game, you're like, fuck, I need to fight that. And then when it comes to fighting it, you
don't actually fight it, you just hit it in the chin.
Yeah.
It's
a disappointment.
Suddenly that One Punch Man lethality from the scene you get after you beat the Vanguard isn't as frightening anymore.
Yeah, it's not as intimidating.
No, still though, Firestorm and Bone Smasher's good. Boss isn't. And coming in at 102 on our list is the old Iron Cunt from Dark Souls 2.
I think the main issue with this boss is the fact that the actual boss, quote unquote, is ludicrously easy, has the most telegraphed attacks in the game, like the biggest recovery frames of fucking anything. It just leaves its arm there for whatever fucking reason. But the biggest problem is the whole boss is just designed to knock you into the fucking hole in the fucking floor. So
all its attacks knock you towards the nearest point of gravity death. All of them. And it's like, someone commented on our worst bosses when we were talking about this one, and said, like, you complain about the attacks being really easy to dodge and telegraph, and then complain about how when they hit you, they send you into the hole in the floor, pick a side. And it's like, it's not about picking sides. Both instances are completely correct, and they're both negative things about the boss. The boss is very easy to dodge, but when the boss does hit you, it almost always leads to dying via gravity.
Yeah. The amount of times that you accidentally roll into it, or you'll just walk backwards into it, or then you'll get hit off the side. There was a time when I'm blocking against the boss and its fire attack clips through the wall, hits me, and then knocks me back into the lava pool at the side. Like, what the fuck? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. There's also a time when the boss picked me up and just threw me into the hole in the floor.
Oh, yeah,
do you remember
that happened.
Yeah, that happened too. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a awful excuse for, like, and it's one of the great souls that you need as well, and it's just, after fighting Smelter Demon to then like finish the Iron Keep with that it's just, because Iron Keep was genuinely a really well designed area.
I liked it.
Like the layout of Iron Keep was really good. One of the best layouts in Dark Souls 2 and the vanilla in the vanilla Dark Souls 2, and then they just fucked it at the end with that.
Yeah.
But oh well, that's what happens when you put that bastard.
I don't even think it's a lack of effort in this boss's part. It's literally the case that they designed it to be that way, so fuck them. It's just not fun, or because you can even be fighting the boss, then you mess up slightly, you're in the hole in the floor. Yeah,
it's an all or nothing boss. It's actually, like, there's a reason why when it came to like deathless runs and stuff like that, people skipped the old Iron King. Not because it was difficult, but because it was either you beat it or you died and your run ended. That's the way the old Iron King worked. The old Iron King was such a huge risk that they skipped it. I think now they just fight the Rotten a bunch of times and just get the souls to go through the gates.
Yep.
Because the old Iron King is just, is too much of a hazard, not because it's difficult, but because it just has elements of bullshit that at one point or another have a very good chance of catching you, regardless of how well you dodge its attacks or any of that shit. If it even clips you a little bit, there's like a 90% chance you're hitting that hole.
Yeah, because the way the camera works as well is you can't really tell very accurately where the hole is to where your position is, because it kind of looks up towards the boss's head.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just not very well designed, and it feels purposefully designed badly just to fuck us over, and I don't like that.
Right, so this is the lowest down Bloodborne boss on the list, and I think for good reason. The fact that Mikolash is again one of these weird fucking anti-boss bosses, it doesn't feel like a boss. The actual fight between you and Mikolash isn't even challenging, but trying to get there is just so mind-numbingly, so fucking dumb. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it, and although there is technically like a method to doing it, the method is fucking dumb. Like, the fact that you need to have that stupid method to even go through it, like, your first playthrough of this is just going to be an absolute nightmare chasing about a fucking hall, unless you so happen to luck out and get him in the right loop to get him into it. There was a time when you were fucking trying to chase him into that hole for like 15 fucking minutes.
Yeah, I put that down to the fact that I had more than 20 insight. I just think the more insight, the more of a dick Mikolash is.
And the fact that, everything about it, I just hate everything about Mikolash, because it's not about the fight, it's about chasing him down in order to like extend the length of the fight to make it seem like more than it really is. It's really nothing. It's just you fighting an NPC with a bigger health bar.
Yeah, and if
the fucking Crow Hunter boss was actually more difficult than Mikolash. That would have been a better boss.
That was an NPC.
I know.
That wasn't even a boss. But like, if you take all the running out of the fight, like if you look at Mikolash as just inside those two cages, right, where you're just fighting him and you forget about the running in between, is he a good boss fight? No. He's fucking shit.
And then when you take the running into consideration as well, it's worse.
Worse, yeah, because then he just makes you run around for ages. And as Tony said, I chased him for 15 fucking minutes just to get him into the first chamber. And that's only a little fucking square staircase that he can run up and down. But it took him 20 fucking minutes, 15 minutes, sorry, to get there.
So yeah, Mikolash can just straight up just go fuck himself, and it's a massive, gaping, pus-filled wound on the arse of Bloodborne.
So 104 is going to be King Alant. Black, blobby, can't do a fucking thing, King Alant. And I know he's like that because it's Alant's corrupted soul and lore and all of that shit. But it's not enough. It's not enough to justify this being there.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at like Astrea or whatever, but there's a lot more context to Astrea, because not only does Astrea have more of an emotional impact to begin with, but at the very least there was like an element of a fight there with Vinland and shit like that, you know, taking the whole thing into consideration. But when it comes to King Alant, there's just nothing there, and honestly it's not so much that he's this far down the list because he's necessarily bad, he's this far down the list because he's just a nothing. There's just like nothing there. Like, he is technically a boss simply by definition that he has a health bar, but there's so little of what makes a boss fight there that this is where it gets put. And the worst part is there's worse than that. A boss that isn't even a boss put there purely for lore reasons, and there's worse than that.
The fact that it has lore is the reason it's higher than these other bosses.
Yeah.
And like, the lore is great, but it's never going to be enough to justify Alant in our eyes, because it's just so empty.
Yeah.
You don't gain anything, you don't feel anything when you beat it. It's just this black blob that's like slowly fucking swinging itself around and trying to hit you, and when it does hit you, it does like 5 damage. It's so bad.
Unnecessary.
Completely unnecessary. And like, what wouldn't it have been better? Wouldn't it have been better if the boss wasn't there? And instead, when you get to Alant, instead of seeing his corrupted soul, you could just see, like, I don't know, maybe just his soul, him himself, and he can, like, talk to you and give you the story and all that, and then you can choose whether you want to kill the maiden or fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, this version of King Alant, I felt, could have been done 1,000 times better. Like, even if you wanted it to be just lore, it could have been done way better, because the fact that the boss is so bad, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when I think about King Alant, and I think about the end of Demon Souls, and it's just not enough. The lore isn't enough to sustain me on this one.
Yeah. But next, we're getting even worse. This is
Last
the top three.
Yep, this is the top 3. The gold, silver, and bronze medals. Let's do it.
So here we go. 105, the third worst boss in the whole of the Soulsborne series, Royal Rat Vanguard. Now, a lot of you probably saw this one coming at this point simply because, you know, the other video, but fuck me, man, what the fuck were they thinking?
It's just, like, at least Alant had lore.
At least.
But... Do you want to fight a big pack of rats?
It's an optional boss in an optional area to get a covenant that defends the optional area, which goes against the purpose of the area even being there.
Yeah, you join the Covenant to stop people beating the area to join the Covenant. So you're in a non-obligatory zone where there is very little online activity, and your role in online activity is to stop people from
Joining the thing that creates the online activity.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea. Like, there's game designers working at FromSoft that thought that made sense. People actually thought that made sense in, like, a long-term perspective of the game. Because at the very least, technically, there can always be PvP in the forest in Dark Souls 1. Technically.
Mm-hmm.
But... It just... Oh my god. But again, back to the boss, though.
Yeah, back to the boss, and it's just exactly what it is. You want to fight a packet of rats? Just maybe only 30 or 40 of them.
You fight 10 rats and then the big one comes down.
Genius. Fucking genius. Can't believe we didn't think of it ourselves.
Unreal. Unprecedented. A prodigy. A visionary of his time.
Unprecedented for a reason, you fucking cunt. Because it's shit.
So bad. Again, one of these things that would just be better if it wasn't there.
It really would be, and it's such an awful, just a terrible idea. Like, they don't do... What's going to happen with this boss? Here's how you're going to lose to this boss, if you're ever going to lose to this fucking boss. You're going to get petrified.
No. Here's how you're going to lose to this boss. You're in a car crash, right? Mm-hmm. And you lost half your brain.
Oh, right, of course.
So you've only got control of one half of your body.
Right.
And, I mean, you're in an almost vegetative state.
Right, okay.
So, given all those handicaps, you may lose to the boss.
But given all those handicaps, you should still have about a 95% success rate.
Give or take.
Give or take. I mean, give or take 1 or 2%, obviously.
But not only is the boss easy, it doesn't look good. It doesn't play good. It doesn't do anything good.
What do you mean it doesn't look good? He's got a fucking mohawk.
Silly me.
His one defining aspect in the boss fight, he's got a fucking mohawk. What?
But at the very least, you don't need to fight this boss.
True.
Which is what makes the next two bosses significantly worse.
Or better, depending on your perspective at this point of the list. Is it better because they're getting worse? Oh, who knows? Let's find out. Okay, so we're down to the last two. And you guys know what the last two bosses are. But one of them is worse than the other. And we're going to tell you that coming in at 106, second to last.
The slightly less watery shit.
Yeah, just slightly lesser. Like, you might have had a high fibre breakfast that morning. It's Magus in the Congregation.
It is, and again, you know, it's quite hard to even talk about the bosses when they're this shit. Like, because you can't even think, like, what the fuck were they thinking? Because they clearly weren't thinking.
They couldn't have been.
Again, another boss that just would have been better if it wasn't there. Like, I remember when I first went into that, I'm like, what the fuck even is this? Like, you hit it and you do so much damage, you're like, right, okay, so it's basically just, you know what it was? It was a glitch. Because they just so happened to put a big health bar there instead of just having the normal floaty health bar over their head. Like,
Had to be.
There's no other excuse.
I mean, it's obvious. Every now and again, look, if one glitch happens, another one's bound to happen in the same place, and you're going to get that second health bar there.
Of course.
Obviously.
Of course.
And it just, look, they just made a mistake with putting the health bars there. Is the only way you can even slightly defend this being a boss is that they just accidentally did it.
Because it just isn't a boss. Like, zero lethality. Like, negative lethality. Because you just wail on them. You just hit. You don't even need to think. You just swing and they die. And cool, you get a Titanite slab out of it. Awesome, but that's it. It's like, it's so bad you can't even define why it's so bad. It's just awful. It's just nothing. It's not even a gank. Like, it is technically, but it's not even.
It feels like you're ganking it and you're solo. Or, you know, you can gank it and you can summon the NPC.
Yeah, they insult your intelligence by actually giving you an NPC summon for this fucking boss.
To be fair though, it completes his quest line a little bit easier, doesn't it?
To what end?
To get his armor, but it's the fact that there's a fucking health bar there. It's an obligatory boss. Like, you have to fight it if you try to beat the game by, like, conventional route. You need to fight it. Because you need to beat it to get to Freya, who have already been over as being a bad boss. And, it's so bad. It's
such a shame. It's a shame. Like, I feel bad for it.
I mean, I really wanted to tear at a new asshole, but at this point, I'm just at pity now.
I know.
It's like, I'm sorry they made you a boss.
You know who
I'm
I pity
sorry they branded you with a label of boss.
I pity the person that made this a boss. I pity the person that presented this as an idea for a boss, and then somehow it went through. Like, clearly, whoever designed this was shagging the main designer, because that's the only reason this went through.
I really can't think of another reason why. I really can't. Like, the boss is just... How can you have such a lack of imagination? Even less imagination than the covetous demon.
A lack of quality control, just a lack of everything.
It's so bad. A Christian rock group and their wee fanboys sitting around them just run in and beat them to death. I mean, we've actually came very close to using just one firestorm to kill both health bars.
Frankly, it's harder than it sounds, which is a shame.
The only reason why it's hard is because they don't group close enough. That's the only reason why it's difficult, is they don't group close enough, otherwise we'd kill them all in one cast.
It almost made the best vine ever.
It almost made the best vine ever, but it didn't. But maybe it will one day. One day. And here we are.
The shittest,
The worst.
the absolute lowest, crappiest, menial, fucking badly designed, terrible boss in the whole of the Soul series.
The only boss that you need to go to New Game Plus 5 to make sure you can't one-shot it if you give yourself all the handicaps.
So, it's a boss that is so fucking irritating that you're
It's in the worst area in the game as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it precedes the worst area.
Yeah. It's the cherry on top of the worst area.
So, Bed of Chaos, man. Like, the fact that, thankfully, there was the method that we have in the guide that allows you to just do it, just pain-free.
Countless methods to do it pain-free. There's the quick reload method, there's the bow method, there's the run up to its face and chuck fire bombs at a certain angle method. There's so many.
And thank fuck, because the first time I was fighting this thing, I'm just like, what even, man? Like, why is this even a thing? Because again, it's like Dragon God, except significantly worse.
Somehow worse. Somehow.
It's a combination. It's literally a combination between Dragon God and the fucking old Iron King, because it's like a semi-puzzle boss where you hit both sides, like you hit both the ballista to actually then be able to hit the boss. But not only that, is the boss is designed to sweep you into fucking nothing, like to throw you down a hole.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of two awful bosses.
I mean, I think it was definitely the inspiration for old Iron King's hole in the floor anyway, because the Bed of Chaos was one of the only boss fights that ever used like actual like stage hazard like that, like holes in the middle of the fucking floor, and it's just there. Obviously, there's bosses that did use stage hazards like gravity, like the man-eaters, obviously, but I'm saying these were like in the center of the boss room and stuff. And
like the boss was specifically designed to knock you into this.
Yeah, and it's just so bad. Such a poor design. And what I was talking about with NG Plus 5, by the way, is that all the way up to New Game Plus 5, you can one-shot this boss with just your bare hand. You can one-shot this boss. It takes you to New Game Plus 5 before you can.
Yeah, but that's not even the boss. The whole point is the boss is the hitting the two things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you have to take the shield down.
It's just terrible. Just absolutely atrocious. A pain in the arse. Just everything about
I don't
it
think
terrible.
anybody has a good opinion of Bed of Chaos. I don't think anybody can have a good opinion of Bed of Chaos.
Yeah.
I think it's literally impossible to enjoy this boss on any level.
Tell us what you think of Bed of Chaos.
Yeah. Hit us with your best analogies for Bed of Chaos, I guess.
And I suppose that is the end of the video and the end of this series.
Yeah, that's the end of all the bosses being ranked. Now, we're not going to make this list again for Dark Souls 3, because a lot of you people are asking, like, we're going to do this list again, the full list, and we're not going to do that because that's a lot of copy-paste. A lot of that is re-uploading. So what I'm thinking is, when Dark Souls 3 and all its DLCs come out and we play them all, we'll just rank all the Dark Souls 3 bosses, and then we'll say roughly where we put them on this list, because that's going to be the better way to go about it, instead of which would be mainly reposting this entire series with just like 1 or 2 extra clips in each video.
Yeah.
Some of them might be the exact same.
Exactly.
So it's better not to just do that and give you guys the same thing twice, when we can just give you something new and then reference the old thing.
However, somebody did mention you should rank all the
areas.
Yeah, and I think we're probably going to do that. People seem to like that idea, and people seem to be enjoying these videos. So we always want to make more of that, and there is a lot of good and bad areas.
There's plenty.
Exactly, so there's a lot to talk about in those kind of videos.
And then there's going to be like a bunch of them in the middle that will be Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Because for the most part with Dark Souls 2, they're not good and they're not bad. They're just okay.
Life imitates art.
Yeah, I guess so.
And most of the top ones being Demon Souls.
Likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's Latria and there's Defilement.
There's I mean, even the fire area as well.
Even Boletaria's, like the Penetrator and the Boletaria is really well designed, I think.
All the areas, and then you've got fucking Anno Rondo, and then you've got
Sense
Ariamis.
I really like Sense Fortress. I know people hate Sense Fortress.
I like it as well because of all the it's got all the traps and shit. But anyway, we digress.
Yes.
I guess this is it. I guess
It's the end of a long series, guys.
I don't like goodbyes.
But at least we went out with a bang.
Yeah.
To shit on that a few months later, won't we? Good times, guys. Good times.
Anyway, hope you enjoyed this series.